Welcome to Millinery and Monsters. My name is Aimee A and I am a Melbourne-based costumier, milliner and maker. I would like to take a little sidestep today to dip our toe into the world of sci-fi and discuss the history of an American novelty product from the 1940s called the Xray Vision Glasses. This is something that as a child I desperately wanted to get my hands on, but growing up in the southeast of Australia it wasn't readily available. I did think I got close though once. At our primary school book fair they were selling a spy novel that had a pair of detective glasses as a promotional gift. I was so excited, only to get them home and discover that they were not what I was looking for, but instead had a hidden mirror on the inside of the lens at the outer edge that would allow the wearer to see who was coming up behind them. Which in retrospect is actually pretty neat, but it isn't what I wanted, so disappointment did ensue. Anyway, so years passed and I forgot about them, but recently they popped back into my mind and I again tried to locate them locally to no avail, and I just couldn't bear going through the postal system once more this year, so I just went to the local junk shop and got myself a pair of cheapy costume sunglasses for I think like $3, and I've decided to instead pay homage with a non-functional pair to sit on my shelf and look pretty. So, like all Australian children of the 1990s, I grew up with a completely Americanized version of pop culture reference. And years before the internet would infiltrate our home, our weekday entertainment were such Australian classics as Home and Away and Neighbours, and a personal household favourite, Blue Heelers. But our entertainment would take a turn at the week's end, entering the magical world of American movies. Aptly dubbed the Friday night movies, generally a blockbuster, followed by the Saturday night movies, generally a double feature, followed by a family-friendly Sunday night movie. These were all planned out in advance in the TV guide insert of the Sunday paper. Now, I did spend a lot of time as a child inventing things out of cardboard and gemstones and climbing trees and playing make-believe and even hosting my own radio show with a cassette recorder in one hand and my hairbrush in the other. But one thing I truly loved were movies. It was like the ultimate fantastical step through the looking glass. Naturally, this gave me a wealth of cultural reference that I was unable to facilitate in my small Australian town. So how did I overcome missing out on these novelties I was seeing on my television? I made them. I suppose I never really stopped doing that, so here we are today. I'm going to get myself started on tonight's creation and run you through the history of the Xray glasses. My plan is to paint the design onto the outside of the lenses and then cover them in rhinestones. What I have done is drawn myself a template so I know how everything's going to be laid out, and I have put little blobs of blue tack where I want my eye holes to go, and then to get the template of the black bars across the top, because I don't want there to be a dip between the frame and the lens itself when I'm covering in rhinestones. I have just taken a little piece of like soft paper, put it over the top of the lens, and then essentially used my fingernail, or you can use a toothpick or something, to press down into the crease so you know the size and shape of the lens. I have then cut that shape out, traced it over cardboard and painted the cardboard black. That is going to give me the shape I am looking for over here, so that it is the same level from the lens glass to the frame, essentially just extending the frame so I can write over the top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those down just using some craft glue, making sure that I get the correct side on the correct lens. And I'm just going to hold that in place for a little while. Now this part does not need to look perfect because again it's going to be covered. This is just a guide. I think it's going to look funky. the next thing I'm going to do is just take a sanding block and just really gently buff the frames so that the glue will adhere to them a little bit better, because I just feel like they might slipper about otherwise too much. Doesn't need to be a lot, just enough to buff the surface up a little. Don't need too much pressure, and you don't need too coarse of a sanding block. You can always wear a mask if you want to, or do it outside. Wonderful. All right, so now we've got the basic block shape of the top of the frames, and we've given it a light buff all over so the glue should adhere a little bit better. And next I'm going to come in and I'm going to paint out my wording up the top. Following the accidental invention of the X-ray around 1895 by German physicist and engineer Wilhelm Röntgen, an invention called the Wonder Tube, a predecessor to the X-ray specs, hit the American novelty market in the 1940s, manufactured by the S.S. Adams Company. The Wonder Tube was essentially a telescope-type shape with a singular-looking hole with a small white feather hidden inside, undetectable to the viewer. When the viewer would look at their hand through the tube, it would appear that they could see their bones. This illusion was prompted by the fine spacing between the feather's strands, amplified by hidden depth perception. Since then, the trope of X-ray vision has popped in and out of pop culture, notably used by the fictional hero Superman. A rework of this design would bring about the X-ray specs that we're familiar with today, a wearable pair of glasses, usually with a thick black frame. And whilst the design of these lenses may vary a lot over time, the most common is the red and white spiral. These glasses were made using a dual cardboard layered lens with a small white feather hidden in between, partially covering a 1/4 inch eye hole, causing the same visual illusion as the Wonder Tube. At the time of their release, the use of X-ray was not yet fully understood by the general public, thus pushing them as a gag gift, claiming to grant the user powers of seeing through solid objects, walls, and even clothes, making it the perfect gift for a prankster. I did just give it a quick test, and I don't think that I'm going to have much luck getting anything to stick directly to the lens. Might need to give that a little bit of a prime. I'm going to do a mask over the eye hole so that I can take that off, and then I'm still going to be able to see through that little eye hole. My prime may cover the painting a little bit, but that's okay. I can just come back over it. So I'm going to quickly go do that. I am going to use a black Citadel paint primer in Chaos Black. I'm just going to do a really light mist over the top. I'm even going to go over where I did do the buffing. This will stick really well to the buffing, and I just think that that's going to give me a better finish on the glasses, because the last thing I want is to spend a long time sticking on rhinestones for them to fall off. So I'm going to do that, and I'll jump back in. And whilst it may be harder to believe in their powers nowadays, they still hold a place in the hearts of many. Alright, take 2. It actually looks better anyway, so that's fine. What I have done, as I said, I've just gone through and I have given it a prime after masking out the eye holes. I did lose a little bit of the lettering, so I've just come back in and I have done a little quick repaint of that. And I'm going to just eyeball the swirls now. I'll keep the masking on for a little bit longer so it's just easier to peel that off at the end. I'm going to go red, white until I reach the border of the frame. Alright, I'm going to let those dry for a little bit, then I'm going to come back in with my white. Okay, now's the fun bit. To cover the entire external facing with colour coordinated diamantes. This will take a while. Now there are a couple of different methods when it comes to applying rhinestones. What I tend to use is a wax pencil or a set of needle nose tweezers, gem glue, and then individually one at a time. The other type of rhinestone you can get is something called a Hotfix Rhinestone, which has a plastic coating on the back, and you apply it with a heat activated applicator, which actually works through the crystal and warms the plastic on the back to help adhere that to the garment or to the piece you're working on. I do have a couple of Hotfix rhinestones, but I don't actually use them with that applicator, although you can use them either which way. I have been told some people don't like to use the wax tip applicator just because they think it does leave a bit of a residue onto the diamantes. I will say I haven't really noticed that happen too badly, and you can always clean them down carefully once they are adhered and the glue is dried, so I wouldn't really say that's too much of an issue for me personally. So with this particular tool, on one end this is like a wax, and on the other end that's just a metal ball that helps you to readjust or push down the diamantes if they're in the wrong spot, or just to make sure that they're making a close enough connection to the piece you're working on. Now with gem glues, I use gemstone glue. That's just what it's called. It's white that dries clear. You can get plain clear ones. There's many different brands. I know that some people will apply it on in a line and then just dab the diamantes one at a time, and others will do like a dot along the way and adhere to each dot. I tend to do the dot method just because it tends to show me how far apart each diamante is going to land and how many I'm going to need. Don't do too much glue at one time because it will dry, and you obviously need it to be wet enough for the diamante to adhere to. Most gem glues are also washable, so do make sure that when purchasing one you make sure that it is going to be the right fit for the uses that you have in mind. Welcome back. Pleased to announce that that only took approximately 2 hours of bejeweling, and we are now complete. I'm absolutely stoked with how they turned out. It was exactly as I had envisioned. Vision is limited, but I feel absolutely fabulous. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed our brief history of the Xray specs. Until next time, happy haunting, and I will see you soon with a spooky little story. Bye! Thank you for joining me for tonight's tale of guts and glitter. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe below.